5 years ago, Alan didn't want to do it again and suggested I do it. So that was the first time that I kind of dusted off my Alan Bennett, you know, which many of us kind of do around the kitchen. And then he wrote a play to accompany that happened at the National Cocktail Sticks, which was about Alan and his parents, and came to all the rehearsals. And so I had, you know, I had Alan to sort of watch and be told what to do by. And he always wanted me, Alan wants me to be tougher than I perhaps sometimes was. And I also, for the movie, had to kind of butch up because he has shoulders and I don't. So they had to kind of make me wider to be Alan Bennett. And you watch and listen, and a lot of the clues are in the words and the rhythm of his writing. So yeah, it's a bit weird.
The consensus is that in the piece, Him, that Alan did first and you did second, you were a great deal better as Alan Bennett than Alan Bennett was as himself.
I don't know about that.
But Alan, I mean, that's you're used now to seeing yourself on stage, but to see yourself in your house must have been a rather strange when you visited the set, when you watched the film now. Is that a strange sensation?
No, occasionally when I was, we used it as a green room as well as for shooting. And sometimes when I was sitting there and saw Alex pass the door, that seemed quite weird, really. But, you know, when you're not thinking about it. He's more socially adept than I am, I think. Is that right?
They got my hair right for the film, which they hadn't done for the stage version.
Yes, he was a bit too Veronica Lake on the stage, wasn't it? Yeah.
Lady there.
Xenia, cinemafia.ru. I have a question to Maggie Smith. Watching The Lady in Van, I couldn't remember your previous character, outstanding Lady Violet Crowley. And for you, whose life more adventurous and preferable seems to you? And in your real life, for who you're closer, to Lady Violet Crowley or to Miss Shepherd?
Which one I'm close? I'm not very close to either. I think curiously, I feel easier with the lady in the van than with that lady with the hat on. It was much easier I can only talk as an actress, it was much easier to be Miss Shepherd because she didn't mind how she looked, and it was such a relief because Lady Violet was forever in those corsets and things that Miss Shepherd would never have dreamed of going near. So for comfort alone, it was nicer to be Miss Shepherd. That's as much of your question as I managed to hear.
A question for Alan Bennett. How did Miss Shepherd get the money to buy so many vans?
The first replacement van was a gift from somebody called Lady Wiggin, who was, Miss Shepherd was Catholic, very Catholic, and Lady Wiggin was Catholic, and I think it was somehow that connection which commended Miss Shepherd to her. And she lived round the corner in Regent's Park Terrace, and she occurs in the film rather slightly libelously, but because Lady Wiggin was very sympathetic to Miss Shepherd, whereas Lady Wiggin in the film is rather sort of keeps her at arm's length. But she gave Miss Shepherd the van, but I did say to her, well, couldn't the van be left outside your house? And she said, oh no. And Regent's Park Terrace is rather grander than Gloucester Crescent. So that was the first van. The second van, I don't know how she had, you see, she didn't really have any expenses. She didn't have any rent to pay. I ran electric out from the house, but she didn't have any bills. But, and she had an address, which means that she'd get a certain more social security. So she actually had some money. When she died, she had £6,000 in a building society. So she would be able to, you know, afford a van. But I never asked her that. And it wasn't simply a van. It was that she also then bought a rather Only Fools and Horses type three-wheeler. What are they called? Reliant, yeah.
Robin Reliant.
Yeah. But I mean, she didn't care about money, and money was never a problem. And to the extent that when she died, and I had to go through the van, there was about £600 trodden into all the muck and filth on the floor of the van. So.
And Nick, you've worked with Alan over many projects and many years. Did you visit the house during this time? Did you meet Miss Shepherd?
I first visited to talk to Alan about the first thing we did together about a few months after Miss Shepherd died. I used to walk past a lot because I always lived in that area, and I used to try and work out who lived where. And I did know Alan lived at 23, and I had no idea what the van and the old lady were about. You know, I do remember thinking once, does he keep his mother in a van? I mean, I dismissed that thought. But when I went, finally, to talk about The Wind in the Willows, which Alan was going to adapt and I was going to direct as a children's show, Christmas show at the National Theatre back in 1990. So it must have been a matter of months after Miss Shepherd died. And I didn't ask what was that van that was there all those years, because you don't. You're English, you're polite. And then when finally I found out about it at the same time as everybody else did when Alan first published his diary about her in the London Review of Books, and discovered that even when the van was in the drive, Alan writes that people used to visit him and were too polite to say, what is that van and who is that old lady who are in your drive? So I was no different from anybody else.
At least you managed to keep your shoes clean. One of the most powerful scenes for me is, anyway, gentleman there.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm a German film critic, and this film is much about finding a home or having a home. And with all these refugees on the run these days, what does home mean to you? This question goes out to everyone.
To all of you.
All of us.
What does home mean to me? Yeah. I'm so glad I've got one. It means, having had a practice at not having one, it means an awful lot. I don't know where, there is no way you could live in a van. I don't think. I know people do, don't they? Some people live in cars, but surely not for that length of time. I've lived in my home for a very long time, and I dread to think what it would be like without it. It means everything.
Kevin, you're a British producer and therefore can probably only afford a van.
Well, exactly. Actually, you can't afford those vans now. Miss Shepherd certainly wouldn't be able to buy one now because they were all beautifully restored when we bought them, and then we had to return them to this rather terrible state. So the poor van enthusiasts who spent so long into restoring them would be heartbroken, I think, to see what happened to them. Well, I think the film really, it's about being part of a community, isn't it? And however begrudging the community of Gloucester Crescent and indeed Alan himself might from time to time have felt. I mean, you know, she did feel she belonged there somehow, I think, for a large part of her life. And that's all any of us could ever want, is to feel part of a community.
Alex, what home means to you?
As Maggie says, you know, just immensely lucky and fortunate to live the life that I'm living with family and a house to live in, when you're flooded by the kind of pictures that we're seeing at the moment, it's unimaginable what some people have to go through. Very, very lucky.
Alan, home thoughts?
Well, obviously, one is very lucky. I see parallels between Miss Shepherd and our own household, in the sense that both my partner and I accumulate stuff, and it's not not in the least bit chaotic like the ban was, but nevertheless, Miss Shepherd used to accumulate stuff, and which she didn't use, and this was no different in a way from I was going to say a normal person, from a person leading a normal life. For instance, one of the things in the van after she died was one of those panels on which her brushes and kitchen implements and so on, which are meant for display in a kitchen. And I remember my mother having one, and we never using the actual implements on this. And similarly it was with Miss Shepherd. She bought this. There was no way she would be using the brushes and the various kitchen implements the life she led, but she somehow saw herself as leading that kind of life, or maybe leading that kind of life one day. So in a sense she was not so remote from ordinary life as one thinks.
And Nick, final thought on home and the themes of the film?
Well, I don't know that this is the theme of the film at all, but three of my grandparents were what would now be called, with a cold lip, migrants. And home for me is underpinned by the knowledge that it could all have been incredibly different. And I feel very lucky.
Well, we must let you get back to those homes. Filmmakers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.